My name is Jasmyn. I have a twin named Rosie and 21 other siblings, though I usually just say I come from a big family. Among them are vampires and grim children alike, my stepfather being the Grim Reaper himself. Ever since I was born, the house was filled with supernatural influence, so nothing about my family or home life seemed weird. It was all just normal to me. I guess growing up in Strangerville will do that to a girl. Having 22 siblings was normal. Waking up to breakfast made by Grim was normal. Each of my siblings and I having a deceased parental figure whose spirit was released upon moving out was, well, normal. I remember asking my mother about that when I was young, and she told me that the land in Strangerville is cursed, that those who procreate with the landowner often fall ill and die before the child is born. I thought that was tragic and vowed to move far from these cursed lands when I was older. I never thought to question my mother's answer, because with everything else, why would a curse be fake? My mother was a beautiful woman, but quiet. She was quite old by the time I was born. I've heard plenty from my other siblings and passerby how she was quite the seductress in her day. I've also heard whispers of much less savory things, but it was hard to reconcile any of those tales with the sweet old lady I knew. Sure, Mom was reserved, but she spent her days knitting and painting with an artistry I always admired, picking up the same hobbies from an early age. Grim has told me before how I remind him of her. I can see the loving but somber way he looks at me when I take to her easel. I know he misses her greatly, and although the bringer of death was nothing more than a kind and generous father to me, I knew he longed to return to the underworld and reunite with the love of his life, though I never knew how the two met in the first place. Grim and Jasmyn were always like a dark fairy tale, and I hope to find a love that transcendent one day. I think I've got that in my girlfriend Rena. We've had our ups and downs, but we've landed hand in hand. She's had a dream of moving beachside, spending the nights with our toes in the sand. Her oceanic aspirations reignited my childhood dream to move far from this town. With the savings my mother left to me combined with Rena's, we were able to find a beautiful house on the beach in the islands of Solani. On the day I moved, Rosie was planning to move out with her boyfriend Tadeo, and thus Grim was to sell the house and finally go back to his homeworld with Jasmyn as well. He sat me down as we were leaving behind my childhood home for good and bestowed me with one last inheritance, my mother's easel. He told me how Jasmyn always had a special place in her heart for me, that before she died, she told him to give the easel to me when I moved out to start my own life, to tell me there was a special note for me taped to the back that I was to open when pregnant with my first child. I was intrigued, but knew I would honor her legacy and follow her directions. With that, we said our goodbyes to Grim, and I hauled my mother's easel along with me and Rena all the way to Solani. Our new home couldn't be more beautiful and suited to our needs. I got to work painting all I could see around me right away. I missed Rosie terribly, as she moved to a big city all the way across the world, but I had siblings I was excited to get to know in town, and my love by my side. Barely a week into our new lives, Rena proposed, and it truly felt like life couldn't get any better. A beautiful home, a beautiful family, and a beautiful soon-to-be wife. My twin often teases me for the naivety of taking things at face value. I guess I should have recognized that the normalcy of it all was indeed strange for me, that things were a little too perfect to last forever. I always looked up to my mother. I always smiled at the comparisons to her. I never understood the scowls some of my older siblings sported at the mention of her name. I never listened to my twin when she'd question what Jasmyn sometimes said. My name is Jasmyn, and I'm discovering that my future is going to be a lot less perfect than I had hoped.